Acceptance. We've heard this word before, and we all know what it means. But do we practice it? And for those that do, to what extent? We currently live in a world where the word acceptance is more commonly known to a child than to an adult. That in itself says a lot. We're born accepting whatever we're told and believing in everything our elders say is true. So where does it go wrong? When do we put up a wall to defend us against things we don't understand? When do we close our minds and refuse to see what is in front of us? When do we begin to fear that which we refuse to learn about? If we all stopped hiding from the truth, would it not be easier to live together peacefully?
When I pledge allegiance to the flag, I pledge allegiance to one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have divided our nation, 1/3 with equality, and 2/3 with people who hunger for equality, but do not have it. Our work is not done, but I am optimistic because recently in California, the California field poll showed that 78% of young people under 39 support strongly equality for LGBT. 78%. It's a matter of time.
We currently live in a gender role-oriented society. For many people, the trek towards a gender-equal society is still a long one. How many genders can you list?
Male, female, transgender male, transgender female, agender, gender fluid.
Male, female, transsexual.
I think it's just a spectrum idea. I think that the extent to which someone is female or somebody's male is such a personal thing that I think as a society we need to get used to the idea that people need to be able to identify themselves and not be a series of checkboxes. I think that our census really likes to have us figure out which one of these things we are when in fact we're several of them.
Kirk, I am going to hold you responsible. There must be thousands of them.
Hundreds of thousands. 1,771,561.
We may not be talking tribbles here, but gender is more diverse than you may think.
People who are not educated about this or familiar with sort of transgenders, they're preoccupied with the genitalia question. And I'm wondering if you think that's true and how, if you have the same feelings about that Carmen does.
I do. I was very proud of you for saying that. And I do feel like there's a preoccupation with that. And I think that the preoccupation with transition and with surgery objectifies trans people. And then we don't get to really deal with the real lived experiences. The reality of trans people's lives is that so often we're targets of violence. We experience discrimination disproportionately to the rest of the community. Our unemployment rate is twice the national average. If you're a trans person of color, it's 4 times the national average. The homicide rate in the LGBT community is highest amongst trans women. And when we focus on transition, we don't actually get to talk about those things. There's a young woman named Ilan Nettles who on August 17th was just walking down the street with some friends, you know, minding her own business, and she was catcalled by a couple of guys. And one of them, once they realized she was trans, she was beaten into a coma, and 5 days later she died. This is the reality of so many trans people's lives in this country, trans women of color whose lives are in danger simply for being who they are. And we're looking for justice for Ilan's murder, and we're looking for justice for so many trans people across this country. And by focusing on bodies, we don't focus on the lived realities of that oppression and that discrimination.
Gender is, it's kind of the same way that I look at race and ethnicity. That race is something that is external. Other people assign that to you, whereas your ethnicity is something personal. Ethnically, I'm Spanish. Most people would not put me in that group of people. And I think that gender and sex is kind of the same way. When we see somebody, we assign a sex to them, but their gender is really a personal thing. The way that they feel is their gender. It's one of those things that, like many cultural elements, I think we work so hard to think that culture is one thing or it's 2 things. But I think the fact of the matter is that gender is this spectrum, and it's where you fall into it. It's kind of the same thing with sexual orientation or race or ethnicity or religion. There's this broad spectrum, and you kind of have to decide where that is for you.
I think that all people should be treated not based off of their gender, not based off of their beliefs, but based off of their actions. So let's say they do really good at work, then they should be seen as someone who does really good work, not, as a woman or as a man or as bisexual, transsexual, any of that.